But I'm about to bring up a sensitive subject, Hillary Clinton. But I'm going to do it for a reason, because I think that Secretary Clinton represents a very powerful strain of thinking in the Democratic Party. Not only is she trying to be an influence broker herself, which is, of course, her right, but she is also reflective of a certain culture of the Democratic Party. We've talked about that a lot on this program with Thomas Frank, among others, and I want to talk about it now in light of another recent event. She gave a talk in Delhi recently, and it happened just around the time of the special election in Pennsylvania. And I think counterpointing those two is very important to do. But first, I want to set the groundwork a little bit with what Hillary Clinton had to say in Delhi. So let's start the audio of that.
If you look at the map of the United States, there's all that red in the middle where Trump won. I win the coasts, I win, Illinois and Minnesota, places like that. But what the map doesn't show you is that I won the places that represent 2/3 of America's gross domestic product. So I won the places that are optimistic, diverse, dynamic, moving forward.
Let's stop for a second. So, okay, this is very close to, and I think reveals some very serious biases on the part of this kind of Democratic Party new culture that's really come around since Bill Clinton in the 1990s. And that is somehow that making more money makes you more virtuous. That I didn't win a majority of the country, but I won a majority of the gross domestic product. Well, so what? Your human worth does not come from how much you contribute to the gross domestic product. Lower Manhattan has a much bigger chunk of the gross domestic product than anywhere else in the country, and they're effing evil there, okay? So there is no connection between GDP and human worth. There's no connection between GDP and even being a decent human being. And I don't think, I just think this is so deeply embedded in this kind of political culture that I don't think Hillary Clinton realizes what she's saying here, but she also equates it with being forward-thinking and diverse. And in other words, she's basically saying, my culture is a culture that is indivisible from human economic production, and she's mixing virtue and production in a way that's very disturbing. And by the way, parenthetically, H.L. Hunt, the far-right oil billionaire of the 1960s, was excoriated when he suggested that people's ability to vote should be prorated based on how much property they owned, which was an old, ancient way of voting. And yet, there's a slight undertone of that in what Hillary Clinton has to say here. Democrats need to lose that thinking. Okay, let's continue with the audio.
Dynamic, moving forward, and his whole campaign, Make America Great Again, was looking backwards. You didn't like black people getting rights, you don't like women, getting jobs, you don't want to, see that Indian American succeeding more than you are. Whatever your problem is, I'm going to solve it. Okay, let's stop again. First of all, look, I'm not going to defend Donald Trump. He's a ghastly excuse for a human being. But Make America Great Again it does not necessarily mean to every single person who voted for him, let's keep black people from getting rights or women from getting jobs. You know what she didn't mention in this whole sentence here, in this whole paragraph here? Jobs, economics, wages. A lot of people, when they heard that phrase, Make America Great Again, thought, well, maybe I'll have a job again. Maybe they thought, maybe I'll be able to raise my kids again. I grew up in a working class America where, for example, my dad was a teacher. He was able to raise an entire family and have a car and use car, but a car, on a single income. My best friend next door, his dad worked at a service station, same thing. Now, what we don't hear in any of this is, well, maybe people
want jobs. And of course, that gets mixed up sometimes with a terrible history of racism, particularly when there's no party telling them that the jobs are being taken from them by bankers and other people who disproportionately add to the GDP. So what happens is that people get stuck. People get stuck into thinking, well, somebody's taking my jobs. Somebody's the reason why Utica, where I grew up, is now less than half the population it used to be. Big chunks of the city lie in ruins, including the house where I originally grew up. So nobody's telling folks why it is that Utica turned that way, that their hometown has turned that way. So along comes Trump saying it's the black people and the immigrants. Well, of course, you haven't given them another story. You've laid the groundwork to bring out the worst in people. And I charge the Democratic Party of Clinton, among others, with creating the groundwork for that to happen. That's not excusing racism. It's trying to explain all the other people. Now, let's go ahead. No more? Is that it? Okay, well then let's not go ahead, but she added more about women and how women only voted for Trump because of pressure from your husband, your boss, your son, whoever believes you should. I also happen to be of the school of thought that says that you should not deprive people of their agency, even in your own mind, just because you don't like the way they voted. Now, again, many people in many parts of the world saw a system that wasn't working for them, saw it as broken. Hillary Clinton ran as someone who would continue the status quo. I would say for an underinformed voter, male or female, not a racist, they might be inclined to take a roll of the dice with something unknown. And yes, shame on them for overlooking the racial signifiers, but that does not mean they were following instructions from their husband or boss. It may mean they just wanted to take a roll of the dice with something else. Now, this whole notion that these poor parts of the country or underproducing parts of the country are immoral and somehow deplorable. Tell me what happened then in Pennsylvania's 18th congressional district, because it went 22 points for Donald Trump in 2016, and a Democrat just won there. So what happened in Pennsylvania's 18th congressional district? Did they all have, I don't know, consciousness-raising seminars for 2 years? What made them unracist? Or is it just possible that something else accounts for the shift in the vote? Is it just possible that because Democrat Connor Lamb, although he ran as a conservative Democrat in some ways, said that he would defend Social Security and Medicare, is that one of the reasons why he won? And he was believable when he said it. Is it because Democrat Connor Lamb said that he was a proud ally of working men and women in unions? He stood hard with the unions after an initial stumble. Did his union identification help him? Unions are very popular in this country, so it's very possible that it did. In fact, it's very likely that he did. So here's a thought for Democrats everywhere. Stop looking down on the voters you need, whether they're white or black, male or female, and start addressing the issues that affect their daily lives: Medicare, Social Security, organizing on the job, better wages. If you start doing those things, you may be able to stop deploring the voters in large parts of the country and may be able to start winning them instead.